Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock, and it's time again for the COPEC Daily Financial Wellness Webcast live streaming here. Today, we've got a really great guest, Nate Quilter with Retirement Strategies, who is a full-time financial advisor and does a lot of the financial planning for retirement strategies. And my apologies. And so we're going to have him as our guest today. Great to have everybody with us. As you know, Jerry Snyder and myself, we host this every day from 2 to 3 o'clock. From 2 to 2:30 is our regular program. We'll take a brief break for the library. We're going to be assembling all these programs for a library in the future. And then right after that, we'll go on. So just hold on for a little bit, and we'll go on for more Q&A from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. So feel free to go ahead and send your questions through the Q&A. If you need to do chat, that's fine as well, but the Q&A, at least we can dismiss them after we answer them. So we'll go ahead and get started here. As most of you know, we basically have, why are we not moving here? There we go. For most of the speakers and retirement strategies, we have board leadership, and we are involved quite a bit, and so therefore we have disclosure that we need to put out there, which includes not only the no sales and no marketing for COPEC, but the company affiliation and then the retirement strategy. So I'm going to leave this up for about 35, 40 seconds for you to take a look at. And if you want to screenshot it, or you can see this as well, a version of this on the COPEC website at the bottom where it says disclosure. Great, so we're going to go ahead and get started here for the program. For those of you that don't know, COPEC, the Central Ohio Professional Education Council, is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that has been around since 2004, and it was designed to bring experts in multiple fields to the community, providing free education with no product sales or cost to you. As you know, right now, this is free. We want you to tune in and listen, and there's no expectation of sales. If you like the speakers, that's up to you, but otherwise, we appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. The financial portal, I'll go over that in a second here, but this here today is about bringing this to you every day from 2 to 3 so that you can tune in. There's a lot of different topics, and hopefully you'll be able to learn something along the way. Connectivity, obviously technology, we have, we'll have problems at some point. So if anything does break down, lose connection, just hold on. We'll try to get it up and running as fast as possible, and we'll get you up and running again. Again, if you have questions, use the Q&A function. Holidays, we're not going to be doing this during holidays, the day after Thanksgiving as well, maybe Christmas Eve. So if it's a holiday and we're not on, that's why. And then please share this with others. This is about really getting the word out, sharing this information and making sure it's good for everybody here. So also real quick on the right side, you can see we've got a lot of great experts, financial counselors, the Better Business Bureau, home care, LinkedIn experts, attorneys, financial planners. So we got a lot of great experts that are available and to share their insight and experience. As you can see, this is the 6 tabs, the 6 tiles, if you will, of the Financial Wellness Portal. If you go into copeceducation.org, on the top left is the daily show that we're on right now. Down below, obviously the purple is to join, but the orange, if you want to see the upcoming programs, speakers, so that you can know if you can tune in for those, or just tune in every day, we'll have them. And like I mentioned before, in the future, we're going to go ahead and have this set up in the library as well so that you can access those whenever you want. Here's an example of the library. So if you look down, I'm sorry, not the library, the calendar. If you look down here on the 20th, so Nate's our speaker today, goal planning for financial independence. And again, for these, there's no registration required, just tune in. In the middle here, we have retirement decisions. For about 15 years, we've been doing these to help prepare people as they approach and get into retirement, STRS, PERS, Social Security, private pension plans, financial independence, Medicare. There's a lot of different things that we talk about to make sure that you review all these variables and you've walked through it and you're prepared and you've made the decisions you need to as you cross over into that new era of your life. This one does require registration so that we know for space, either at the Fawcett Center or at other areas. And with the COVID right now, we're struggling, of course. But stay tuned on that. And then if you're interested, go ahead and log in and we'll make sure we inform everybody that has registered. And again, there's no cost to that. And then every Friday from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, we have the Financial Wellness Fridays where each of our speakers gives a lecture for about 45 minutes to an hour. Just like today, there's no registration and it's totally free. Just tune in. And at the bottom of that page, when you, let me go to that real quick. At the bottom of the page, you see all these tabs with different calendars. So obviously coming up on the 21st tomorrow, Jerry Snyder is going to do an hour-long presentation on Medicare basics. So if you're interested, go ahead and tune in on that as well. If you're part of a department at the university, any other companies, organizations, and you want to have our speakers do a special program just for you and your employees, associates, or members, go to this tab, send us a note. We'll set that up for you, and our speakers are very flexible to make sure we can do those for you. And then the last here is a 15-minute consultation. Our financial experts are happy to guide you and answer most of your questions. If you have any life events that are going on or any concerns that you'd like a little bit additional information that we can't do in this setting, set up a consultation here, or you can email us directly and we'll be happy to help you out. So no further ado, we're going to go ahead and have our discussion today with Nate Quilter. Nate, you've been doing this for a while, and do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and also what we're going to talk about today?
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me today. So yeah, my name is Nate Quilter. I'm a financial advisor, certified financial planner, retirement strategies in Dublin. And yeah, I've been, that's kind of my focus. I mean, as a financial planner, you kind of have your finger in everything, all different aspects of it. But my kind of feature, what I spend my most time on is actual planning. So we use a planning software and, make projections going out, however long the life expectancy is for someone. And the planning helps to see different ways to optimize things along the way and make changes to get you to where you want to be. So.
Well, great. Well, obviously being in the same industry and working with you, it's always been real exciting to see how you've been able to, put these plans together, and they really start with making sure you clarify and you define and prioritize goals in your life. You want to tell us a little bit about the goal setting? I know that buying a house and maybe retirement are two general goals, but how do you break that down even more?
Well, that's a great question. And, we'll talk about different specific goals and different presentations throughout these. With today's being more financial independence, we consider that really, what do people think of retirement? We think of as financial independence really is the step to get there. So, our firm's called Retirement Strategies, but we prefer the term financial independence, which is just having the resources to do what you want to do. You may still continue working, but maybe you'll retire. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to retire. It just means that you can do what you want to do. Now, with retirement, that's probably the biggest reason why we see people come, that have specific things they want to work towards. It's retirement is that goal. But there are a lot of other goals, as you mentioned, purchasing a home, education planning, that kind of happen along the way, or some of them happen after that financial independence is achieved. but they all work together. So, going back to what you mentioned about defining it is, you really need to decide what that goal is, and when you prioritize it, that's one of the most important aspects is, especially when you're looking at retirement, a lot of times it's 20, 30 years away, and you have that home purchase or that education planning or, 50 other shorter term goals along the way. And it's, you need to, those may be the more top priority for the short term, but you still need to be thinking about that retirement, looking out that 20, 30 years or 5 years, depending on, what your situation is. So, that always has to be on your mind. And it's hard to really achieve a goal if you don't know what it is you're shooting for. And that's where that defining it really comes into play.
So one of the things that I think is important, we talk about different people in retirement, and they have different, you talk about the goals. Okay. So somebody who retires, we don't want to have in retirement just enough to get by, right? And so there's this term out there in financial planning called needs, wants, wishes, right?
Yeah.
And you need something to survive. You want to survive comfortably, and you wish that you could have 2 homes, or extra travel, or be able to spend extra money on family or whatever it might be. Do you want to walk through that whole needs, wants, wish process and why it's so important to really analyze it at those different levels?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So as you mentioned, needs are your basic needs that you need just to survive. Food, shelter, the basics. Even health insurance I consider a basic need. But so that's the absolute minimum. But most people don't want to live like that, where they're just sustaining and not enjoying themselves really. So next step we like to look at is wants, and that's really what we want to shoot for when we do planning. Is okay, what do you want your retirement to look like? And it's hard, if you're 20 years out, it may be hard to picture you in 20 years and know exactly what those are, but we want to get a general idea, and maybe let's just assume you need the same thing to spend, but it's going to be on golf instead of clothes for work or whatever it may be. So we've got our wants. That's kind of what I look at as the minimum, and then the wishes. And those wants can be adjusted a little bit. Let's say you want to plan for $10,000 of travel a year, but it doesn't look like you're going to be able to achieve that. Is $8,000 acceptable? So the wants, you still want to be a little bit flexible with those. You don't want the wants aren't as much of a necessity of meeting as a need, but you want to be able to, reach those wants. Wishes are that kind of, like you mentioned, a second home, or I want to pay for my grandchildren's entire college education, things like that. It's, hey, that'd be really nice to do if I can, but I might not actually achieve that. And so we like to always make sure the needs and wants are met, and then let's move on to the wishes. And that's really where the planning comes in a lot, is that you can say, okay, look, your needs and wants may be met very well, but if you want that second home, here's what it's going to take. And it may be a few more years of work, or it may be cutting back travel, or whatever other expenses it may be that you can cut back to reach those. Well, then it's really your choice. How much do I wish I had it? Am I willing to do those things to do it? Or is it, hey, I'd rather do these other things, the others wants up to my full level and not worry about that wish. But it's always fun to explore through that entire spectrum of, having the resources to get by.
Sometimes in our planning, we may have one client. There's a tool called Monte Carlo, where when you run that tool, you get a percentage of success, and it's a testing tool, right? And for most clients, you want 100%. In a perfect world, it's 100%, 99%, whatever that might be. And you have some people where if they're just getting by and they're living on very low means, and they're not don't have a lot of wishes and they don't have a lot of wants. They're just barely getting by. You want to see that at 100%, right?
Absolutely.
Before they stop working, before they start gifting money away, before they start going on those extra trips that they can't afford. Whereas somebody else, maybe they have a lot of expenses that include brand new cars and a boat and a second home and a lot of travel. For that person, maybe, maybe they could retire with only a 75 or 80% chance of success, but that doesn't worry you as much, does it?
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly right. When you're in the wants and wishes realm, and 80% is good. When you're really getting into those wishes that, hey, just a quick, brief, explanation of the Monte Carlo. The planning software runs 1,000 different random market simulations of, different things that can happen with inflation and with the markets. It takes in things like 2020 happening, or good years like 2019. So it kind of runs all those for the different years of the planning to give you an idea of what could happen, because we don't get those averages every year. So you're exactly right. If 800 of those 1,000 trials came back with second homes or boat, or your car being a expensive sports car instead of a Honda Civic, whatever it may be. Hey, well, that's that. In those 20% of instances where it would have failed, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail. It just means you're going to make adjustments down the road. Well, maybe you do cut back and get less of a car or travel less or whatever it may be that you cut back on. When it's more of those fun things, it's easier to cut back. When you're at an absolute just minimum, what I need to get by, if you've got a Monte Carlo of 90%, well, 90% is good on the other spectrum, but when you're in just the needs, and you're a 1 in 10 chance that you can't even meet those needs, where are you going to cut? That's where you hear the proverbial, eating cat food or splitting your pills in half. Your adjustments are going to be major adjustments to life that, could be almost threatening to your safety, as opposed to somebody just, buying a lesser car or something like that. So absolutely, the comfort level of that Monte Carlo is different based on where you stand. Now, with that said, that comfort level is also kind of a personal thing with people. We have people who are at a 99 that are in that wants and wish category, and they still say, look, I'll work another year. I want to see 100% up there. I'm not comfortable knowing that, things can make it so I run out of money. Where I see other people that have a 70% and they're like, woohoo, I'm telling my boss I'm out of here tomorrow.
Right.
So it's really a comfort level thing on your end too. Now, I'll kind of express my opinions on my comfort level with it, but ultimately it's your decision.
And the interesting thing for those that are, contemplating doing financial independence, the sooner you can get these projections, the better. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. There are different kind of levers you can pull to reach the goals you want, but it's working more, taking a little more risk with investments, cutting expenses. When you retire, the year you retire, working part-time, all these little things can change to make you meet your goals. But the longer you wait, the less changes have an impact on it. So, if you cut $3,000 of expenses from when you're 20 years old to you're 80, that's huge. If you cut $3,000 of expenses from when you're 60 to 80, it's not going to have as much of an impact. So the sooner you know where you stand, and it may be that where you stand is great, and you can already start working at those wants and wishes when you're younger. A lot of people hold back too much, thinking if they get their mind set on retirement too much. So a lot of times the planning just helps you open up to do some spending, knowing that you're on track. Or if you're not on track, hey, here's what I can do to make smaller incremental steps to get there, instead of having to drastically make shifts later on.
Yeah, and I find it's kind of like medical. Sometimes people don't want to find the results of certain tests, so they don't go. Or with financial, I'm fine, or I don't want somebody telling me I can't spend money, right? And when you do that, it's not about telling anybody they can or can't spend money. It's about telling them, if you did make this change, this is what the results could look like.
Exactly.
You do whatever you want to do.
Exactly. That's what, hey, Bill, and I know we tell people all the time, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to show you the impact of what that would have on your overall plan. It's ultimately your money and your decision. You're the one that has to live with that. Though, obviously, we work with clients long term, so we, to an extent, we live with it as well. But it's going to be, the impact is going to affect you more than anybody else. So it's your decision to make. We just kind of want to show you what that decision looks like,
So to really maximize not only the saving for retirement, but also maybe, some tax bracket management you can do even after retirement. What kind of tools should people think about, and maybe ideas that they might not have thought of before?
Great question. A lot of it really, for tools, there are all different financial tools out there that you can use. Whether it's the type of account you're saving in, it could be a pre-tax 403B or a Roth IRA, or, if you have a pension, whether through the state or private, they're all different tools at your disposal. And kind of the things you don't think about is, when that goal is. So if you're looking to retire at age 50, or you want financial independence at 50, well, you don't want to load up all your money into pre-tax accounts that, you want to, because there are penalties to take it out before age 55 or 59 and a half, depending on what type of account you use. So when your projections are for is going to kind of help you determine, well, hey, I need a little extra money in an after-tax brokerage account or a Roth IRA that I can tap into my contributions without penalty before age 55 or 59 and a half. So the flexibility of those different types of accounts can have an impact on it. Then on the other hand, if your goal is after age 59 and a half and those age restrictions aren't a problem, well, then it's, what's the taxability of it? We just worked with somebody today where we're looking at the tax brackets, and it's, okay, here's where you are. Here's where your effective tax rate's going to be for the 5 years after retirement. And then here's where it's going to be when you have to start taking required distributions. Well, here's that window. Let's do some Roth conversions at this point, or whatever it may be. It's save money pre-tax now, take the tax hit in the middle at a low rate, and then later on, it kind of spreads it out. But again, it really just comes down to, there are all different tools out there, and are you using the right ones to kind of meet what your goals are? So a lot of that is when you want to have financial independence, but a lot of that too is just looking at the bigger picture over a long period of time and looking for those planning opportunities in the different time frames.
Right. It's interesting, and I don't know, this can be looked at different ways, I guess, but the younger you are, the more most people understand 401k and, these typical, basic tools that they can use for retirement or any other investing. But really, the younger you are, the more critical it is to manage budgets, limit expenses, and quite honestly, save. You can't invest your way out of bad savings habits. It's when you start growing a net worth, you start making more money, you start having a situation where, a 5% savings in tax makes a somewhat of a benefit when you're 25, but when you're 65 and you're moving money and bringing it in from 5, 10, 15% savings is huge when you're looking at $500,000, $1 million or more with your assets or pension or whatever it might be.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely. 5% if you're pulling $100,000 out of your accounts to live off of, that's $5,000. That's real money. But, going back to then the younger example, if you, let's say you start an account and you put $1,000 in it, you may be a genius investor and earn 50% returns, but you're only making $500. It's really the impact is, being able to budget and save that money. How you save it is, your ability to save is going to be the biggest impact. But like you said, when you're 65 years old, or whatever the age may be, where you've got $500,000 in the account, well, saving 2% or, earning 1% more on it or saving 5% in taxes, it's going to be, the bigger impact is what moves you make with that 500,000 rather than what you can save that particular year usually. Now, budgeting still is important. When you're younger, you can somewhat earn your way out of mistakes. Work a little, hey, you've got this paycheck coming in. Well, when you're in retirement and you're taking that money from your accounts, you need to have a good grasp of what your budget is, or else you can overspend and blow through what you have saved much more quickly than you anticipated.
Right. Yeah, and it really boils down a lot to budgeting. That's the other thing. We talk about budgeting when you're younger, but if you're used to bringing in, $150,000, let's say when you're working at age 65 and then you retire, but then all of a sudden you didn't need, that was more than you needed. You were bringing in from employment, let's say twice what your expenses were. All of a sudden you retire based on your expenses, which is 75,000 in that example. All of a sudden you need to budget. You need to start looking at expenses a little bit. You can't just spend whatever you want, because in those last 10 years of working, if you're in the many, situations we've seen, they just made more than they spent. Then in retirement, you don't make any money anymore. So now how much you take from those investments, it was based on a plan and it was budgeted. So you better start learning how to budget, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a shock for some people,
It really is. And it takes time, because here's the biggest thing. You have enough money when you're 65. You have enough money when you're 75. You may even have enough money when you're 80. But do you have enough money when you're 85 or 90? And that's where these plans fail or succeed, is how you think at those last days. How are you living those last 2, 3, 4 years of your life? Are they getting by, like you said, on a fixed income? Or are you still enjoying it, getting the best care, still being able to, spend time with your family the way you want to, versus you can't get around and you're homebound or whatever it might be, and you don't have the income to be able to, support those most vulnerable days of your life.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And that's really what that Monte Carlo is, what's the likelihood that you will have enough money to meet that and get through to the end? And that's like you mentioned, I have never seen a client run out of money at age 65. It's that, as they get up in the 80s and 90s, that you're like, and you want to start thinking about it beforehand. And going back to what we talked about earlier, that, that flexibility of the spending. Well, in those years where the market's down, if you just cut back on travel that year, that may be all that you need to make up for those ones that would have failed, and make sure that you have enough till you're 90.
And the key is, a lot of times people, they struggle visualizing if they have enough money in, at age 85. For example, if you retire at 65 and you've got, a bunch of investments, but you don't know if that's enough, and then you have a pension and a Social Security. And let's say that pension and Social Security plus, some withdrawal from your investments, it feels like you're covering everything. But in 25 or 35 years, depending on how far out this goes, if your pension isn't going up, Social Security is barely going up, your investments do well, maybe don't do well, all of a sudden, your income need, it doubles every 20 years, right? And
right.
Or you may have miscalculated whether you had enough money put aside to truly be able to make up for those lost cost of living adjustments in those pensions or Social Security or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Inflation is one of the most underlooked, I think, aspects of, projections for a lot of people. Like you said, hey, when the day I retire, my pension is going to be enough to meet my living expenses. I'm fine. Well, a lot of those state pensions or private pensions have no cost of living. Some do. OPER still has a cost of living. They're doing a freeze for a couple of years, but they still have it. STRS is not there right now. Private pensions don't have it. So the cost of everything's going up, but your income's staying exactly the same. So like as you mentioned, 20 years from now, everything's going to cost double. So if your pension was just meeting it now, well, you're going to need money in accounts to make up for that difference later on. So always keep inflation in mind when you're doing your projections.
Well, Nate, it's 2:30. It's been a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate your insight. We're going to go ahead and close it up here. And then I do have some questions for the second half hour. I have another question I want to ask you. And also for the attendees, please go ahead and send some questions in for Nate. Let us know if you have anything you want him to talk about. Just send them on over and we'll answer them. So Nate, do you have anything you want to wrap up with? And then we'll take a quick pause for the recording and then we'll go on.
Yeah, I mean, just as Jade mentioned earlier, the earlier you start, the better it is. Maybe something a lot of people don't want to do it because they're afraid of the results, like you mentioned, but it's usually what I see are people are very relieved just to see where they stand exactly and get ideas for what they can do to get to where they want to be. A lot of times it's just, like an ostrich, stick your head in the sand and forget about it. Well, compare it to the medical, like you said, you're going to have to face it one day. The sooner you can get a feel for it, the better. But yeah, thank you for having me. And like you mentioned, I'll be here for questions. So.
Well, thank you so much. Yep, thank you so much for joining us today. If I recall, you're going to be here pretty much every Thursday. So, we're going to continue this discussion. I know we're going to talk about like different life events, how to attack those, and just a number of things. So thank you so much. And we're going to take a quick break here and we'll answer a couple more questions. Thank you, Nate. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.